I'm now going to call out our next presenter, Becky Swain. She is a founding member of the Cloud Security Alliance. She's the security SIG lead for the Cloud National Order of Women. Did I get that right? No. She's going to correct me. I'm sure I said it wrong. They are also, by the way, running a luncheon today at 12:15. Formerly, she was a program manager at Cisco, focused on the cloud security business, and she's currently a partner at Echo Consulting. Becky.
Good morning. Can't see you all very well. Let's see here. Okay. I'm here today to tell you some questions that you should start asking your cloud providers. I'm going to say these are the top 5 questions to ask your cloud providers over protection of your data as a cloud customer. But I'm going to start off telling you a little bit about the CSA. And much of what the CSA works on is very relevant for this talk. So CSA is a global not-for-profit organization founded back in 2009. It has over 29,000 individual members, 120 corporate members, and 60 chapters worldwide. It's really focused on building best practices and a trusted cloud ecosystem. And it's based on an agile philosophy, really wanting to build out tools and guidance balancing compliance with risk management, reference models, looking at identity as a key aspect to securing the cloud, champion interoperability, enabling innovation, and being an advocate for prudent public policy. And I do want to mention there's an upcoming event here locally at RSA. There's going to be a CSA summit, and I encourage you all to attend if you can. And below is their mission statement. So what is the CSA producing? CSA has guidance that we're going to talk about today. They have a toolkit called the Governance, Risk, and Compliance GRC Stack. It's made up of 4 elements: the Cloud Controls Matrix, of which I'm one of the founders, the Consensus Assessment Initiative Questionnaire, aka CAKE, Cloud Audit, and Cloud Trust Protocol. It also has recently created a registry which is open and available for all to use and leverage, where cloud providers can share either their compliance with the CCM or a completed CAKE questionnaire. The other thing offered is a user certification, CCSK. So we're going to talk about the guidance today and dive into a couple of the sections, a couple of the domains respective to the questions that I'm going to bring up. The current release was back in November. It has 14 domains. The 14th domain was added to the new version, Security as a Service, and is aligned to the SDOs, the standards development organizations, inclusive of ISO, IEC, and ITUT. So we had this Gartner prediction back in December. By the end of 2016, more than 50% of Global 1,000 companies will be storing customer-sensitive data in the public cloud. So the first question I want to ask you guys: how many of you trust putting your sensitive data in the cloud today? Raise your hands. I think I see one. All right. How many of you believe in the Gartner prediction? A dozen, couple dozen. All right. So in my opinion, I do believe it's possible. However, I'm not entirely certain that the cloud provider and the cloud customer are on the same page about managing expectations around protection of that data. So let's go into the questions. Question number 1, is your cloud provider transparent? The subtext is trust but verify. The real issue is your cloud provider able to share with you openly as a customer or a potential customer even under NDA, what their current policies and procedures are, how they protect data, any network diagrams, data flows, anything that give you really good idea as a customer what's happening with your data once it enters their environment, or even audit reports. So really, an agreeable level of cloud security or cloud transparency enables the customer to ensure that they're managing their own supplier risk. So the guidance document provides some guidelines on how to handle and expect certain answers from your cloud providers. In in domain 4, in section 2, it talks about how organizations should have strong governance over mandating and requiring audit insurance as part of their core processes. Selecting third-party auditors that are cloud aware, maybe even have gotten the CCSK certification. And taking advantage of existing assurance mechanisms out there, like, say, an ISO certification that really does include issues or controls around handling multi-tenancy. The SOC 2 audit reports that you hear a lot about today. In fact, there's a lot of controversy on which SOC report to use. It's not really kind of clear which cloud provider should use which report. Or you could even use CSA star. On to the next question. Is your cloud provider security minded? Is security truly baked into their environment, embedded into their DNA, a priority to the business? Without having certainties over where they prioritize that security when it comes to business development, how do you know that they're not making trade-offs? So within the CSA guidance, it provides some good rules on how to implement security within the environment so it truly is part of the organization's DNA. Concerning issues around identification and implementation of appropriate organizational structures, processes, and controls. How do you manage supply chain risk, balancing a company's corporate risk appetite and external legal or regulatory obligations? Is your cloud provider customer friendly? So when establishing an SLA, the reality is there's an agreement to share risk. The minute you put data into the cloud, as the customer, you're still obligated to comply with any regulations, maintaining your own security requirements, but how do you get assurances that the cloud provider is meeting your expectations? The SLAs that you negotiate with your cloud provider is going to be key to ensuring that that is in fact happening. To get the kind of guarantees. Some issues that you might have to look at and go into deeper dives is access to control in multi-tenant environments, or do you permit your cloud providers to have administrative access to your data? Do you need to encrypt data? Is that a requirement? Do you need to establish expectations around business continuity and disaster recovery? Certain uptime requirements, all very key. In the guidance document, it actually goes into great detail around, hold on, having some issues here. In governing in the cloud, you get a good sense of what kind of expectations you should have around securing data, encryption of data, understanding what kind of SLA requirements should be included around regulatory rules and guidance. On to the next question, number 4. Is your cloud provider data aware? So the picture up there represents physical data or paper-based data, but in reality, it is pretty scary. And unless your cloud providers can give you certain guarantees that they understand the sensitivity of that data that you're entrusting to them, and they themselves have policies and procedures and rules, data lifecycle management, retention policies on how they deal with entrusted data, not just their own corporate data. Very important. And within the guidance document, there's a domain really focused around information management and data lifecycle management. So I encourage you to check it out. It talks about different forms of data, whether they are sensitive or not, how to classify them, how to manage them from a retention, define them, determine what kind of transmission requirements happen when you send that data in. And then finally, is your cloud provider compliant ready? You have to decide. Ultimately, as the customer, you are responsible. From a data privacy perspective, you might be the data controller. You need to have certainties that provider is enabling your compliance, understands your compliance requirements, and that the right due diligence is done to understand where the gaps are, the control gaps that have to be filled, where are your dependencies, are you meeting your breach notification requirements? All of these are very key. And then finally, in the CSA guidance, I want to point you again back to the section domain 4 that goes into specifics around how do you build out awareness and adherence to regulations, the types of regulations to be cognizant of. One I would like to call out today is we've got emerging EU data privacy legislation, and it's going to be interesting to see how the US and Europe globally market the cloud space, knowing that it's going to be very challenging to meet requirements like right to be forgotten. So I just want to thank you today. Hopefully I've given you some things to think about, to take away, so that when you start to do your own due diligence with your cloud providers, you are asking them the right questions to manage your own supplier risk. Thank you.